I think we can get started. So yeah, can you guys see my screen, the notepad?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, okay. So today's class we will do project Terraform plus GitHub Actions. So I'll just explain about the process point of view, and then we'll do a couple of steps to complete the project. So this Terraform, in most of the companies, they integrate with any CI tool. Like let's say they will integrate with Jenkins, GitLab, Azure DevOps, and also GitHub Actions as well. So so like our course, we targeting mostly on GitHub Actions, and most of the companies now adopting GitHub Actions. So obviously, if they are managing the infrastructure using Terraform, so they obviously integrate the CI tool as GitHub Actions with Terraform to create the infrastructure on multiple environments. So the main reason for enabling the pipeline to deploy the infrastructure is to uh, like automate the manual steps, and also to track what's happening uh, in terms of like if you're maintaining infrastructure at a large scale. So we need to track all the changes that is going on. Without CI tool, without any CI tool, if you just clone the repository and if you just create the resources manually, and parallelly if some other guy trying to apply the changes in the AWS, so there might be a conflict that happens where one of the developers may face issues, one of the DevOps engineer may face issue while he was recreating the same resource again. So we need to have a centralized location, and we need to maintain the repository pipelines, which gives in terms of better experience for deploying the changes on the cloud. So every time you create a pipeline, you should follow some process. For example, in my project, we use trunk-based branching strategy where we have a main branch, and also we create feature branches from main. So feature slash and the ticket ID, whatever the ID, Jira ID that we use. So any changes that we make, uh, first we'll create a feature branch out of main. So we create the main feature branch from main, and we do changes, all the required changes. For example, a new Terraform module we need to implement. We will implement that in the feature branches. So once you implement the changes, so we trigger a PR, and this is the same approach I was talking from the beginning, and it applies the same strategy for triggering the pipeline. So initially, the way you trigger the pipeline depends on the project. You can trigger the pipeline on push. You can trigger the pipeline on workflow dispatch. You can also trigger the pipeline on external API calls. And also you can also trigger pipeline via pull request. So the best approach out of this uh, uh, concepts is if you just create a pull request from your feature branch. So like let's say you have like created a pull request from feature to main. So like for every merge that you do from feature to main, you have to get it reviewed by some other guys, right? Some leads, DevOps leads or managers. So they have to take a look and get it approved. So what happened, like if you want to test the changes, like let's say you have few changes in your feature branch and you want to test the changes. So in like most of the companies, they follow the process using pull request. So whenever you raise a pull request from feature to the main, so that time the pipeline should trigger. So the pipeline should trigger. And since we are talking about Terraform, so Terraform will have different steps, right? Some of you know about Terraform. So it has Terraform plan, Terraform validate, Terraform apply, and it also has Terraform destroy. So we never use destroy directly because it will destroy the resources, but we do have Terraform destroy. So Terraform plan will show us the changes that is going to apply on the cloud. So Terraform validate will basically show us something issue with our code, with our Terraform files. It will show us like how any if there is any issues with the workflows or the Terraform scripts. It will show us those errors. And Terraform apply will directly apply the changes um, on the cloud. And Terraform destroy will destroy the changes. So whenever you create a pull request, so it should always run Terraform plan. So what happens uh, if you just like apply both Terraform plan and apply? It doesn't make sense, right? So every pipeline that trigger, you should first run the Terraform plan. So when you raise a pull request, when it shows us the changes that is going to implement, so developers will get like, or the DevOps engineer will give the clarity what is going to happen. So at first, so Terraform plan, we should trigger whenever the pull request happens. So the pipeline, so the first condition is whenever someone raises a pull request to main, so the guy who is like who created the pull request should know his changes that is going to be deployed. So that's time the Terraform plan we will integrate. I mean, we will integrate in the step that it should run only Terraform plan should only run if the trigger type is pull request. So then if you want to apply the changes, so once PR is approved, once merged to main, so once PR is approved, once merged to main, so that time it should run Terraform plan plus Terraform apply. So, and also one more thing that we need to understand that, so there's also an option called workflow dispatch. So some of the cases where we want to deploy the changes on the dev directly. So workflow dispatch will enable us to trigger the deployment manually. So it has an like option called input section. So where we'll select the inputs like whether you want to apply plan or whether you want to apply option. So other thing you need to understand is, so whenever you are running apply, on the backend, it should also run plan because apply requires the planned output. Output.tf is required for the apply to deploy the changes on the cloud. So if you just run plan, it will just show us the plan, the changes that is going to be deployed. But if you selected the option as apply, it is indirectly running the Terraform plan and it is like creating a file output.tf file, and that output.tf file will be used by the apply to deploy the changes. So that's the whole idea of in terms of the process oriented. So let's go to the GitHub once and see what we have in the project. So this is like the workflow folder .github workflows will have all the required YML files. Right now, if you see, we have one workflow.ml, which is like define all the required steps. So by the end of this project, so I want you guys to convert this workflow into reusable workflow, which means that you have to keep this workflow in a centralized location from DevOps repository. Think of a DevOps repository, and you have to call that repo from here. So right now, if you see, this workflow is like pretty straightforward workflow. Only this project can use this workflow. But tomorrow, if there are so many projects that onboarding, And if they are using the same steps, so we need to put this in the centralized DevOps repository. So like it's like the configuration is simple for you guys. By anyway, by end of this project, you will get clarity about these steps. But just keep in mind that for tomorrow, if you're coming for the next class, I want you guys to convert this workflow into a reusable workflow. So you can take help of AI or ChatGPT or Copilot. But for now, just understand the flow, then you will be able to easily convert that into a reachable workflow. I'll also, like at the end of the session, I'll show you what you need to do in terms of acceptance criteria that that is required to complete this task. And also we do have another folder called modules. This is like S3 module, which basically creates a S3 bucket with all the permissions applied, policies applied on the S3 bucket. And we do have a backend.to, which is simple, where we have like S3 bucket that I have created in the AWS account. And also we like the reason that I have selected is API icon Southern. This is just a backend that Terraform required. And then we do have a like main.to, which basically have all the required providers. And also we do have like provider for AWS because we are deploying to AWS. And we also calling the module S3, all those related configurations. Like these are all not required really, but what you need to focus is like we are basically creating S3 bucket on AWS account, and then we are making this call. So when it comes to the workflow.yml, let's understand one by one. So let me open this in a Visual Studio. So this like I mean this is the first time you guys seeing, so which looks complicated, but it is not that complicated. It is like pretty straightforward. I mean, all these steps, if you guys at least know about the Terraform basic commands, then you're good. It's just like a few masalas that I have added in terms of when this step should trigger, when specific steps should trigger. So like obviously the workflow starts with the name that you guys must be aware, and the run name. So run name is basically it has like three layers: layer one, layer two, layer three, which means that based on the trigger type, if the event is pull request, so the run name will be the pull. It will pick up the pull request name, or if the trigger event type is a merge group, in the sense if you're merging to the main, so that merge group name it will pick up as a run name. And if you're running manual run or using Webflow dispatch, so the run name will be the manual run name. So run name is just a parameter, so which is an optional one, which tells like the workflow event type. It will capture the event type. And we do have like our on workflow dispatch, which has a multiple parameters. If you observe, the workflow dispatch has a inputs action, which has like a choice type, which has multiple options like plan, apply, destroy. So you're using this workflow dispatch, you can manually trigger this workflow, and you can manually pass the parameters that you require. If you're not passing anything, by default plan is, I mean the default parameter it uses is plan. So plan is just, it will just show what are the changes it is going to implement. And then we do have a pull request. So in single workflow, you can define the triggers, multiple triggers. You can also trigger, you can also mention push trigger, which I have commented for now, which is not required. So I don't want to push all the time if there is a commit that happens to this workflow. So, and then we have a pull request. So any pull request that happens to the main branch, the workflow should trigger. And the types we already discussed. If it is open, first time if it is an open pull request, then it will trigger the workflow. And the second time onwards, if you try to synchronize, which means if you keep on pushing a commit, then it will the workflow is triggered. Or if the pull request is reopened, once you close the pull request, and if you again reopen the same pull request, that time the workflow should trigger. And then we have a closed pull request. every time, like when you merge, once a PR is approved, once you merge the changes, the PR will be closed, right? So that time the workflow will get triggered. Right? And here comes the job section. So the job will have like a Terraform, which is the like the name. So the name will basically captures. I mean, you can like if you see right, the name you can give the plain name, or these are like GitHub events. You can capture the event type just like above. And then it is running on self-hosted runner, and then it has the permissions. The workflow obviously will not be having all the permissions at one go. So we need to give permissions to read the repository content. We also need to use ID token, which means that if you are using OIDC role is a one way of authenticating to the AWS account. So you guys must be aware of authenticating your AWS account using access ID and secret ID, right? So if you want to avoid that, obviously companies will not use access key and secrets key in the projects. They use a IAM role, which I'll show you in the AWS account. So we use a IAM role to authenticate to the AWS from the pipeline. So if you are using roles, we need to enable ID token as right. And then also pull request, like I have defined as right, because in order to give better experiences for the changes that we are going to deploy, it is not feasible always to look at the logs of the pipeline, right? If Terraform plan is doing some changes, we need to capture those output and show it in a dashboard kind of thing. So what if you can capture that output from the logs and put it in the pull request description. So that way developers can see, or DevOps engineers can see easily what are the changes that is going to deploy. So that's why in order the workflow to be able to write the pull request, we need to give the permission pull request to the write. So that is what we have done. And then Terraform, like this is environment variable. So we like I have defined to capture the workspace. So every time you run a workflow, the runner will clone your repository, and it will have its own directory. So I'm just using github.workspace, which is a GitHub provided directory where your repository will be cloned. So I'm capturing that directory path with the environment variable so that I can use during Terraform plan apply, during like performing those steps. I'm like assigning that capturing the directory to environment variable. And then we have like steps section. Obviously, the first step is basically checkout section where we'll check out the code. And then I'm setting up the Terraform setup CLI, Terraform CLI, which is like if you are already installing the Terraform on the runner, this step is like optional. And then here comes the configure AWS credentials. So like I was talking about access key and secret key, you can use access key and secret key to log into AWS account. So for now, like for in this demo or even in the real-time projects, we use a IAM role. This GitHub Action Deployment IAM role I have created in AWS, which I'll show you shortly. So using this role on this region, and this I'm using this custom action, which is like approved custom action available on the marketplace. So using this step, I'm authenticating to the AWS account. So why do we need to authenticate? So we are deploying the resources on the AWS, right? So in order to deploy the changes, we need to log in into the AWS and apply the Terraform. And then here comes the Terraform init. So Terraform init, you guys must be aware, is the first where you initialize the project, right? So where Terraform will look at all the whether the required files are available or not. And also Terraform init will download the providers plugins, like those are required to perform the plan and apply. And then here comes the validate. So validate will basically validate if there are any syntax issues with the Terraform configurations, it will just throw an error. Then here comes the plan. So like it looks like these are all like first time you guys are seeing. This looks like too many lines, and it is like not clearly defined. But so the whole wholesome idea of defining these many steps is, so we are running Terraform plan to view the changes that are going to apply on the AWS. So, and what we are also doing is we are capturing the Terraform plan, whether it is a success or failure. So based on the success or failure, I'm controlling this step. So you can ask like if this Terraform is plan is if it is fail or success doesn't matter, right? If it succeeded, it will continue to the next step. It is fail, it is fail. But it is like furthermore masala to capture the Terraform plan output, and then because if you see here, right, we are adding a comment to the PR. So like if the Terraform plan is succeeded, whatever the plan changes that have been that is going to apply on the AWS, I'm capturing those output and then using curl command, I'm posting that output to the PR comments, PR in the comments. I'll show you in the GitHub once I run the workflow. So that way, developers can see what are all the changes that is going to apply on the AWS cloud. So this step is like if you generally look at if you don't want to view changes on the PR, that is fine. You can anyway see the changes, the plan changes that is going to apply on the GitHub logs. That is fine. But it is like further in projects, in real-time projects, every step is like the way you have to write the source code for your pipelines is every step is important. What is the output that is coming? What is the like where the output is going? How to handle that output? Is there any dependency for like if there are any other steps required that output? So we need to capture all the possible use cases and then write your logic. It's not like generally if you are running Terraform plan on your local, you just run Terraform init, Terraform plan, Terraform apply, and then that's it. It is going to get the resources. But when it comes to the automations, like you have to think in such a way that whatever the possible outcomes, you need to like optimize or you need to get you need to write your code in the most optimization way, and if you choose along with that the better experience uh, and better like view if someone wants to like so from the management if they want to see the changes, the PR changes that is going to apply, he cannot go directly and see the logs. We don't have that much patience. Like so, for example, from the business teams, think from the business team's point of view, he'll simply go to the PR and he should be able to see the latest run PR changes. I mean, whatever the comments that has added in the PR, you should be able to see that. So that kind of experience we need to provide. So that's why like we are trying to whatever the plan output, basically Terraform plan will need a plan that need to be passed to the Terraform apply. So we are like creating a plan and then we are using Terraform show command. We are reading that plan, we are reading that plan and then we are adding to the PR comment. As simple as that. Forget about the logic point of view. Like right now we have like AI tools that gives the logic, but what you need to really care about is you have to execute this step and analyze the step. What is the output that is going to come? So if you understand those, you can tweak whatever like, and you can add 100 lines up to this Terraform plan as well. You can remove these lines if you feel like it is not required. So, and then here comes the Terraform apply. So Terraform apply. So when this basically apply will run is, you see, you have a if condition here. So obviously if condition is mandatory that we use in the each individual steps. We do have like if condition here. So understand this if condition. So this step will execute only if the event is pull request or if the event is push or if the event is workflow dispatch and along with the and along with the workflow dispatch if you are like user is using action plan, then only this workflow should trigger and no other possible ways the workflow should trigger. For example, if you are triggering this workflow from the external API call, so that time it will not trigger this step because it is like has a security rule that only if this condition is met, then only the step should perform. Even Terraform apply as well. We don't want to apply, changes for every time someone is pushes, right? So like we should restrict some level when we should apply the Terraform apply. So if you see this condition, it will apply only if the event type is push and if the reference, Git reference is like pointing the main. This is very important. So this condition is like we use everywhere to protect the main branch, like not in the protecting the main branch, if the changes from feature to main, if any changes that are going from feature to main, then only the workflow should trigger. So that's why it is showing reference head to main. Only if the GitHub reference the changes that is going to main, then only the workflow should trigger. And also there is an option, other option called event, which is workflow dispatch. If the event is workflow dispatch and the user is selected action as apply, then only the step should perform. And then this is like simple cleanup, which is like not mandatory. So yeah, so this is like overall Terraform stuff. So let's go to AWS account and create a runner. So right now, so we have created a self-hosted runner yesterday. Like that is I have decommissioned. So let's create a runner, self-hosted runner. So meanwhile, like you guys have any question, you can unmute and you can ask your questions. Meanwhile, I'll just spin up the self-hosted runner.
Now, why we added exit code is equal to 2?
Yeah, so Terraform, if you like, if you ever run Terraform plan, so it will show, I mean, the success status code for Terraform is two, basically. So if it is given exit status 2, which indicates that the plan is succeeded. I'll show you anyway in that once I run the.
Okay.
So we are basically capturing that output.
Okay, got it.
So I'm just launching a EC2 instance for setting up the Terraform. I showed this in yesterday's demo, but I'll quickly show again if someone misses. Let me quickly SSH into the instance. And then let me update and install Unzip. Meanwhile, let's go to GitHub and go to settings. Actions, runners. So this one I created yesterday. So whether we can remove this or let it be. Click on self-hosted runner. Click on the Linux because my runner is like I've created it EC2 Linux flavor. Let's execute the steps one by one. So it is asking few configuration details. So for now, I'm just using the default, the name of the runner, and also the label. I'm just keeping as it is. And also the work folder. And then finally running the script run.sh in the background. So if you go back to the GitHub,
Where we can get that script now?
like on the GitHub, 1 second, let me show you. Can you see the GitHub page?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you see these steps, so these like if you based on the Linux flavor, I mean based on the flavor that you use, if you
Okay.
are Mac, Linux, Windows, so you can perform these steps one by one on the wherever you want to make your mission as self-hosted. So the last step which I performed, like the GitHub is provided, I mean recommended in the UI is just to run the script. So the problem is like the session terminal is, I mean, if the terminal session is expired, your runner will go offline. So that's why what I have done, I've run this step in the, like I've done little tweaking to the step to go to the terminal again. The
I
last
think you
command that
just turned in background, right?
perfect, exactly. So I'm using ampersand, which means that the command will be executed in the background.
That process ID it has shown.
Yes, yes,
Okay, got it.
exactly. So I'll just go to the runners and then see now that the runner now is showed as ideal. So and like then we are good for now. So now here comes the interesting part. So now I explained the folder structure. Now I also explained the workflow. So and also now we should run this workflow. So there are
Oh,
multiple ways you can
sorry,
run
so
this
your
work.
screen got stuck with the Linux.
Yeah,
I think it's a runner screen I'm seeing. I'm not able to see.
yeah,
Yeah, now I can see.
yeah, yeah. So like if you just look at this Terraform GitHub repository, we do like discuss till now like the workflows and the different modules, all the stuffs. So the first condition that I'm trying, the first way of triggering my workflow using workflow display. So I'm going to the actions, I'm going to Terraform GitHub, and then I'm clicking on run workflow. So if you see here, we have options to select the branch. You can either select the branch main or you can select if you are doing the changes late. I mean, future newest, if you are doing like any implementation of new services that you need to deploy, for example, Lambda's module you want to deploy, and that Lambda is not yet available on the main branch and that is still in the development phase. If you want to run the Terraform plan to view the changes, you can select the feature branch. And then you like we have like different actions as well. You can select options like plan, apply, destroy. The destroy we generally don't use in the project, but just for the sake of the demo, I have like enabled the destroy as well. You can remove when by the time when you are practicing this project, you can remove the destroy option. And then like we have two options, plan and apply. So in real-time projects, we do have another option parameter called environment. So which environment we want to deploy. So either you can take this up as a task for tomorrow's class before you know. Anyway, if you are not, if you guys don't get time, even I'll show that enabling environment here, like dev or report. Based on the environment selection, also you can deploy the changes, the infrastructure changes. So for now, like I'm keeping the main branch and then I'm running first Terraform plan on the on push. I'm just observing, like observe what is going to happen. So now the like Terraform is started triggering it. So you see, we have like it is running only the Terraform plan stage itself. So it started checking out the code and then it is setting up the Terraform. And then it is so authenticated to the AWS account using role. I'll show the IAM role after this. So then it is started initializing the Terraform init on the runner. So then the Terraform init is successfully validated. And then here comes the Terraform validate. So the configuration which is looking good, that's what the message indicates. And then we have like Terraform plan, which is going to execute. So it shows us, you see, like Terraform plan is successful and it shows that 18 resources is going to add. Like it is creating a S3 bucket, but on top of it, like it is going to implement some policies or lifecycle policies, the bucket access roles, whether it should be a public or private buckets, some stuff like that. So all those configurations on top of it is going to add it, and the plan is going to add in 18, like 18 resources. So if you see here, like exit code is 2, which means that the plan is executed successfully. Which means that we need, like, based on the plan, we are like in the code we are capturing this output. So this one way, like we just ran the Terraform plan manually just to see what are the changes that is going to apply. So like what interesting I'm going to do now is I'm going to trigger the workflow using PR. So from main branch, I'm creating a new feature branch, feature/PR trigger. Okay. So I have created a feature branch now. So now if you go to the PR request, if you're trying to create directly from the latest branch, it doesn't make sense, right? Because there are no changes yet on the feature branch. So for that, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to the PR trigger branch, going to like making a small change just for the sake of triggering the workflow via PR. So I'm going workflow folder and just removing this hyphen button and then adding commit and then doing the committing. So now if you go to the pull request, then GitHub will detect it and will automatically show us like the button. So this button for creating a PR from feature to main. So that's what I'm doing. So if you scroll down, you will see an option called PR request, pull request. So you can either raise a pull request directly, or if you are the work that you are doing on the feature branch, if it is the development is not completed, but just for the sake of the visibility for the management that you are doing some tasks for the latest ticket, so you can create a draft pull request, which indicates like which team members will indicate that like if the PR is draft, which means that the development is still in progress. So right now I'm just selecting like clicking on the directly the creating the pull request. So then it shows the changes, file changes. And then if you see here, there are some changes that we need to, before you make any changes to the main, you need, like I have enabled a branch protection rule. Where I have enabled a branch protection rule? That I have enabled in the settings, branches. If you see the branch protection rule is main. So anyone, if you go inside the branch protection rule, so anyone is going to make any changes to the main, one approval should be required, right? So one approval should be added, like one approval should be mandatory if any changes happening to the main branch. If you just remove that changes, and then if you go to the pull request, see no checks, like you don't have like a option to approve them. I mean the stuff. And also one other thing is, right now we have created a pull request. Now the job is successfully completed 1 minute ago. Let's see what happened at the time of creating a pull request. You see Terraform plan is applied. So and then he skipped Terraform apply and then the cleanup step. So why it is skipped the Terraform apply? Because we added condition, if condition that apply should run only merge happen to the main, only if the reference is main. Any changes happen to the main, then only apply should trigger. So then like it just triggered Terraform plan. So what it also does is if you go to the pull request, open the pull request. So if you scroll down, see it added the Terraform plan output to the PR itself. So if someone comes and once someone sees it, like he should be able to understand that, okay, these are the changes that is going to be deployed to the main, I mean, going to be deployed on the AWS account, and we can able to review these changes directly on the pull request. You may not, if generally, if we are not adding to the PR, he should go inside his workflow and then he should like toggle too many times. and you should go to the Terraform plan. Here also you can see able to see the required changes, but uh, but just for the process improvement point of view, you can able to come here. So now, so like now the branch protection rule I have removed from here. So you see here, if you go to the branches, see like I have not added any protection rule to the main branch. But if you add this and if you like enable at least one approval, you save these changes. And if you go to see, it is again asking the review because we have based on the toggle. Like think of this setting as a toggle, branch protection toggle. If in the projects we enable this protection rules, branch protection rules to toggle the changes that is going to be deployed, especially for the main branch. We don't want any changes that going to main directly match to the main. If you don't have this option, someone can directly match these changes to the main branch, which we generally don't recommend it in the projects. So for now, since I don't have any approvals, I'm removing this branch protection rule, then saving the changes. So right now the pull request is uh, doesn't have any approvals required. So I'm just clicking on merge pull request and then confirm merge pull request. So I'm just merged my changes to the main branch. If you go to the actions, see it triggered like this is like code QL that GitHub will automatically running. And if you see this Terraform plan, it is triggered when it is triggered because of closed, because of the PR is closed, because we have merged the changes. So if you see here, the Terraform plan, uh, started running the jobs. Right? My intention is whenever you make any changes to main, it should also trigger Terraform apply as well. But it is skipped. Let's view the workflow why it is skipped. So before I debug this, let's run the Terraform plan as well. I'll come to that, like why it is skipped it. But let's apply the plan once on the workflow dispatch. So now it is like taken the option as Terraform apply the event type because I have selected the option as apply. So even if you run apply, it will just again run the Terraform init because apply requires in like all the previous steps. Like it's just a life cycle of the Terraform. If any changes are deploying directly, it should perform all this way of, multiple steps. It started creating the resources on the AWS account. Let's wait until it's completed. So you see, like now the Terraform apply is completed. Let's go to the AWS account once and go to S3 bucket. And then if you see, so basically it created two buckets with two different names. So like I used a random provider in the Terraform configuration because bucket names are unique across AWS accounts. So it created basically two accounts on this specific dates. So when let's go back to the what happened in the plan. See, if you guys understand, if you guys observe this, so before Terraform apply, it also skipped Terraform plan, but plan requires that plan Terraform plan output, right? So what exactly happened here is if you go to the workflow file, so you see this condition. So if the GitHub event, you see even though if the plan is skipped, we also added another condition here is if the event type is workflow dispatch, then the plan should run. So from this plan, it is able to run the apply command. So we have manually ran the workflow dispatch, manually triggered the workflow. So this condition is meeting. So where in the apply itself, we are running Terraform plan as well. Because some of the cases where we just want to run Terraform apply directly. So scenarios like that, like we can enable this option, or else you can do one thing. So you can also run plan whenever any merge happens as one of the steps, just like if you can also run if any merge merge queue, there is also an event called merge queue. So you can enable that merge queue in the Terraform plan. So that way Terraform plan will apply and Terraform apply also will happen so that both the conditions will be met and execute the workflow. But in our scenario, we are skipping this plan whenever any merge happens to the main, and then we are directly perform the step. And this also like has a validation that we are doing here. If the event type is workflow dispatch, then the Terraform plan should run. And using that output plan, then we are using the Terraform apply. So this is like just little tweaking. So you can tweak the way you want. So it's totally my perspective and my project experience that I have enabled the steps, but you can write your own step. You can tweak this workflow. So now let's go back to the issue that we faced earlier. So our issue that we faced is whenever any merge happens to the main, our workflow should basically trigger a plan and apply. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to the Visual Studio. So I'm asking Copilot because not all the conditions I have earlier performed. Like I have like tested like workflow dispatch, PR request, but I haven't tested the condition once the changes are matched to the main. So I'm asking Copilot, once changes are matched to main, I want the workflow to run, plan, and apply. So let's see what it is going to modify. Because every time you you develop any workflows, so these are all the condition scenarios that you need to test by yourself. So it is basically understood in another way. Let's give another way of uh, prompt. So I started changing, modifying the lines. So let's accept this. I'll show you like what is changed, the latest changes in the PR itself. So I'm not modifying directly in the main. I'm just going and then creating a new feature branch. So for every, even in the projects, if you find any bug, just create a feature branch from the main, and then you add your changes to the workflow. And then I'm just for the sake of showing you the demo quickly, I'm just adding directly, but in projects you do commits via the Visual Studio. So and then making, yes, yeah. Who is that?
Yeah, Surya, my doubt is correct. So event type previously it was using push only. Now I think it's changed to pull request in the plan event.
Yeah, review the changes. So the better way, I mean, the changes that we can view is from the PR itself. So yeah, I think what you said is correct. See, earlier the plan is like, I mean, push, it changed it to event action as closed, something like that. And then if you see, there are a few more changes that it happened here. So the Terraform plan is event type is pull request. This changed that. The event section is closed and the event request is merged is true. So few changes it made. So I created the appearance, and I mean, I think it's running something. So it is running both Terraform plan and apply. So yeah, like this is like expected. Every PR we don't want to run apply, which is expected. But let's close this PR. And let's see if it is serves the, I mean, because every merge that happens to the main, it should run both plan and apply. But let's see if that Copilot fix that issue. Else, I'll troubleshoot further, or if you guys get time, you can also do. Like the concept is simple. If any changes happens to the main, for every pull request, it should run. Yeah, now it's all right. Now it is running Terraform plan. Yeah, now it's like it says no changes is required. So the infrastructure is up to date. There are no changes required. So the idea here is every time DevOps engineer raise a pull request, he should first see the plan changes. And it varies different to different environments. For dev, he can able to run plan and apply directly. But for higher environments, he should only able to run Terraform plan, the changes that he's going to deploy. So the second scenario is every time he makes any changes to main, he should also able to deploy the changes. He should be able to run Terraform apply as well. So as simple as that. So that he can able to deploy the changes only changes are once changes are approved and merged to the main. That's the whole idea. So like for now, I'll stop here because for tomorrow's session, I'll little more optimize this project to support multiple environments where we'll deploy the S3 bucket in dev account and also pre-prod AWS account. And also I'll show you how you can convert this into a reusable workflows so that multiple projects can use this same workflow. Or if you guys get time, some of you get time, you can also convert this project into a reusable workflow. So that way you can you can have this workflow in a centralized location and anyone from other projects can use this workflow. So if you guys get time, you can do, or else I'll itself show tomorrow's project. So these are like two topics for tomorrow's agenda. But for today's class, I just want to introduce the different ways you trigger the workflow folder structure, and like different conditions that I want to show you. That's like intention for this today's demo.